In the bitter winter of 1962, the Indian soldiers bled and froze on the Himalayan heights. China had launched its brutal invasion, and the Indian establishment and the soldiers weren't fully ready. India's leadership was not just not ready, but it was intellectually disarmed to even respond to such an invasion. In the run up to this attack, a historic opportunity had come to India, one that could have nipped this very invasion in the bud and then changed India's fate, its place in the world, and perhaps even altered the course of the Cold War itself. And yet it was spurned, not by ignorance, not by lack of resources, but by the arrogance of sanctimony. Welcome to the Drishtikone show, where we go beyond the noise, fears of propaganda, and expose the strategies that others are too afraid to name or call. This is not just about politics, you see, it's about the war on India's soul itself. Today, we show how India, its Jawans, and overall people, paid the price for a massive geopolitical blunder by India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, thanks to his holier than thou and sanctimonious stands. The information is taken from the book A Life in Diplomacy by the Indian diplomat Maharaja Krishna Raskotra, or better known as M.K. Raskotra. The foreign minister Natwar Singh had described this book as one of the best autobiographies by any IFS officer since 1947. Raskotra served as a 12th Foreign Secretary of India, a role that is today with Vikram Misri. Sometime in 1961, US President John F. Kennedy extended an unprecedented gesture to India. Alarmed by the Chinese nuclear advances, Kennedy sent a personal handwritten letter to Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. The offer was that US support for India to become the first Asian country to conduct a nuclear test before China could do so. This was not just rhetoric. Kennedy's letter was accompanied by a technical note from the chairman of the US Atomic Energy Commission. The US was prepared to one, provide Indian scientists with the nuclear device, second, assist in detonation in the Rajasthan desert, third, operate American military equipment and aircraft in India, and fifth and fourth, fully back India's strategic deterrence. All this without conditions. No demand to join the military bloc, no strings attached, just a simple realization that in the Asian theater, a democratic India needed to assert itself before the communist China gained the upper hand. As per Ashok Parthasarthi, G. Parthasarthi's son, Nehru had shared the letter with only two people, GP or G. Parthasarthi and Dr. Homi Bhabha. GP was India's permanent representative to the United Nations and the first vice chancellor of JNU in 1969. Nehru was actually strongly against the offer from the get-go. While Homi Bhabha was for immediate acceptance of Kennedy's offer, GP, on the other hand, wanted a couple of days to process it. And he discussed it with Ambassador Galbraith, who's the US ambassador, and B.M. Malik, that the book says was India's pretentious intelligence chief. Unquote. They advised acceptance, but GP ignored their advice. GP told Nehru what he wanted to hear, which was reject the offer. The well-meaning, no strings attached offer was rejected, not out of technical hesitance, which Homi Bhabha had taken out, but ideological obsession. Nehru, the high priest of non-alignment, chose moral posturing over hard power. He turned Kennedy down. Even as China raced towards the nuclear weapons, Nehru clung to a hollow idealism, a belief that being morally superior mattered more than being militarily secure. This was despite Kennedy's sincere advice to Nehru in that letter. Nothing is more important than national security. But Nehru believed otherwise. He chose image over deterrence, sanctimony over statecraft. Non-alignment became a religion, and India was a sacrificial lamb. China conducted its first successful nuclear test in October 1964 at Loknoor. India, it was still debating. It would take another 10 years and the trauma of the 1971 war before India conducted its first nuclear test in 1974 under Indira Gandhi. But even that came at a cost. India was slapped with technology sanctions, it was isolated, and far behind China in the nuclear race. Had India accepted Kennedy's offer in 1962, the outcome would have been dramatically different. China's 1962 war would have never happened. Pakistan would have thought twice before launching its wars in 1965 and 1971. The India US relation would have blossomed decades earlier, and India would have emerged as Asia's premier nuclear power, altering the global balance. Instead, India remained trapped in self imposed vulnerabilities, all for the illusion of moral high ground. Let us be clear, this was not just an innocent mistake, it was a part of a pattern that followed. The Nehru Gandhi clan has always placed power, prestige, and personal ideology over India's national interests. Nehru weakened India globally through failed diplomacy, misplaced idealism, and ignoring real threats. Indira weakened India internally with emergency, crushing dissent, and political manipulation. Rajiv brought disaster to Sri Lanka, and Sonia and Rahul continued the legacy of appeasement, vote bank politics, and ideological delusion. At every major crossroads, the Nehru Gandhi dynasty chose wrong path because they never chose India. They chose themselves. What makes this betrayal worse is the sheer thoughtfulness of Kennedy's outreach. Kennedy admired Nehru. He believed India should lead Asia, not Mao's China. He emphasized that nuclear deterrence was about survival, not aggression. But Nehru's worldview was that of a colonial era aristocrat trying to please every camp while pleasing none. India's embassies in Moscow and Beijing, blinded by idealism, failed to grasp the ground reality. Kennedy's hand was extended, but Nehru, fearing it might taint the non aligned movement's purity, pulled India's back. And India, its every citizen, paid for it. India was humiliated by China, blackmailed by Pakistan's nuclear shield, and kept out of the global nuclear alliances for decades. Non alignment, meant to protect India from being trapped in Cold War politics, became the very thing that exposed it to danger. Nehru's refusal of American help did not win us any friends. It won India nothing. China became the nuclear power, Pakistan followed, even North Korea raced ahead, and India was left defending its morality while others were defending their borders. And what was the result? A nation humiliated in 1962, a nation blackmailed post 1990s by Pakistan's nuclear umbrella, a nation that could have been a superpower was held back by one man's delusion. India was offered the crown, a place among the world's great powers, but it chose a halo instead. This was not just Nehru's failure, it was a foundational flaw of a leadership that believed virtue alone could defend a nation. But in real world, power respects power, not platitudes. Had Nehru acted with clarity in 1962, the India of today would have been vastly different, more secure, more assertive, more respected. Instead, we are still catching up to a race that we should have actually led. Think about that and listen to it all over again. Thank you. Jai Hind.